Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome. That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and get started. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of all of these collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So what we're looking at here are books that are coming out April 8th or 9th, depending on where you get your books. We have a reprint of an Epic collection, a new ongoing Epic collection here of a classic story with a new design too, and a reprint of an old trade paperback, two new ongoing X-Men series, a mini-series, and a tie-in to this big event, the Venom War. So, as always, I like to leave in the description of the video timestamps where you can find each and every one of these books. But before we even go there, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel. Small thing you can do, but it does mean the world to us. All right. Oh my goodness. What do we want to start with today? Let's start with that Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. We are looking at Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe again. Now, this has been previously printed before. I believe it came out in 2018, the trade paperback. It is a follow-up. I don't want to say a follow-up, I'm sorry, because it isn't really set in the same universe. But it is in the same vein as Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, Deadpool kills Deadpool. And Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe has been collected before in an Omni format, even though it was the minibus, so it's minibus volume 2. This, though, has not been collected in an oversized format. Written by Colin Bunn, Dalibor Talajic is the penciler, Goran Sudzuka is the inker, Miroslav Merva is the colorist, and Joe Sabino the letterer. And this collects the Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe again, issues 1 through 5. This book retails for $15.99, and it has 112 pages. The basic premise behind this is that, yes, you guessed it, Deadpool kills the entire universe, but it's not about why he's killing them. It's more so how he's doing it, which I think a lot of people find interesting. So it kicks off with him on a different Earth, and he is with the Uncanny Avengers. And the Uncanny Avengers have a mission to take down AIM. MODOK is in charge of AIM, so you have Synapse, you have Dr. Voodoo, Rogue, and Quicksilver, and of course Deadpool. All of a sudden, Deadpool starts hearing some noises and some sounds in his head that make him start seeing the world almost like a classic comic, almost like a one of those Richie Rich or Casper the Friendly Ghost type of comics. And the characters, his team, turns into the anti-Uncanny Avengers. So you have Hands-Off Cowgirl, Snarky Raptor Cheetah, Dr. Voodoo Doll, and Brainwave Ninja. And he starts taking them down, cutting them down one by one until they're all dead. This does have a parental advisory, not for kids warning. So there's an investigation, right? Like after he kills them, because he seems to be, maybe he's under some kind of mind control. But you have the character of Jessica Jones, Cable, Misty Knight, Moon Knight, and that's Mr. Knight, and Punisher investigating. And at one point, you know, Punisher's talking about that it looks like we all fit the profile for his victims, right? That he's going after superheroes. I love this right here because this is so Frank Castle when Kate Bishop is like, or her victims. The killer might be a woman. And he's like, don't start that crap with me. You know what I meant. It is a very Frank Castle thing to say. And it's about investigating why he's doing. So you have these street level characters that are, with the exception of Cable, who's a complete badass and has teamed up with Deadpool before, investigating why he's doing it. Well, we know that he's having visions. We know that he hears sounds, but who is behind it? All of it is revealed through these very pages in this miniseries. And even though we've seen stuff like this previously in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, some of it goes quicker than others, but we do have some new victims. Like, we have people like Gwenpool that shows up through here. We have people like Mr. Knight that shows up through here. And a lot of the villains. There's some dark stuff in here, because, how do I word this without going too deep into spoilers or anything, but there's a scene with, like, the Power Pack and Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, and Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur that it's not graphic or anything, and it's kind of off panel, but still I was like, oh, we went there. Man, that's dark. But you can find out who is pulling the strings, who is making them do this by reading the book. I don't want to spoil it. And what ends up happening. Again, this is all set in a different universe, of course. In the back, you have the different variant covers and Deadpool versus Wolverine, and then the ad for the original Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. Another week, another From the Ashes X-Men book. This time around, we're looking at X Factor by Mark Russell, Volume 1. Please like and share, which is really the foundation of this book. This book collects X Factor 1 through 5, 128 pages, and retailing for $17.99. And let me just say how excited I was when I opened this up and I saw what could be Rusty Collins. Then again, I'm like, well, it could be somebody else. All right. So the basic premise of X Factor, this is again after the events of Krakoa and Fall of X. We don't know the whereabouts of Professor Xavier. Not all the X-Men can be found. Some of them are still scattered about, but we have these characters here. Angel, Feral, Fire Fist, which is, of course, Rusty Collins. So it is Rusty Collins, Cyber, and Cameo. These are two new characters, and Havoc. And they are all brought in by this gentleman right here. This is the character of what is his full name? Roger Broderick, and he works for a corporation that's kind of like TikTok. It's Click Clock, pretty much, and they're buying superheroes. They're buying mutants. Both him and this military person, this is General Mills, and yes, it is very tongue-in-cheek like that, are working together to have a military type of team, but one that is one that has a lot of subscribers and a lot of viewers. So everything relies on views, everything relies on likes. So their missions are all streamed so you can view and interact with the characters. It's very weird, but it's very now, if you will. So the new characters are Metamorph, who can shape himself, and you have the character of Cyber, who we met a little bit earlier, and he can do electromagnetic pulses. Now, their missions don't go as planned, and we get a revolving door. We get a rotating cast of characters. So the new team is Havoc and Frenzy and Cecilia Reyes, Granny Smite, and Pyro back here, and then Cyber from the previous team. So they go on different missions, and we start seeing these characters come out of their shell a little bit. Like Cecilia is here. She takes on this job and she agrees to do this ridiculous type of thing because she's trying to get over this guy named Wintergeist, who is a new character that she broke up with, a mutant that she had a relationship with, and he may or may not show up later on. We see Pyro doing it for the money, Havoc still trying to find, no matter how the hell I've been how the hell long Havoc has been around, he's always trying to find his place in this world, and it's so weird to see him do that again. Both him and Polaris are again together. This again taking place after the events of Dark Web, and it is explained a little bit as to how Havoc is back. The most interesting character that I think out of all these, because I've always been a fan of Frenzy, I've always been a fan of Havoc. Cecilia Reyes, she wasn't my favorite New Mutant when she showed up in the pages of, what was that era? The Maggot and Cecilia Reyes and, Marrow era. But she kind of grew on me over time, especially, I actually liked her in the X-Men Forever story. Granny Smite has this awful, awful origin. Not in like a bad way, but just bad things that happened to her. Her husband died in a fire, and she survived miraculously. Her kid and grandkids died on a plane crash that she was on. She was on the plane with them, and then she survived. So she has the power of immortality. Now, it's not really explained if she hurts or not, but she can get caught. Like, Havoc watches over her. He's like, no, you're not allowed to come in this mission because we're going underground. If something happens, you're going to be alive and buried underground there forever. So we can't have that happen to you. And I like the way they kind of take care of each other. But each issue is kind of a different mission. There are characters of... Let me see. Yes, Darkstar right here that is leading the X-Term, if you will. And X-Term is a Russian military force. It's like I guess it would be like a mercenary squad that was composed and founded by Darkstar. And after the fall of Krakoa, she now is trying to gather more members to join her. So it's a little bit different than the Click Clock version that is X Factor. Now, in the back, we do have the letter here from Mark Russell. Now, this is another series, I think, that ends with issue number 10, so there'll be one more trade paperback of this. And what role does Polaris play in all this? And what happened to the original team? Rusty, where's Rusty? Fire Fist. I love the fact that they brought him in, though, because he was one of the original... I mean, his first appearance was in the original X Factor issue number 1. But that is X Factor Volume 1. Please like and share. Annihilation 2099. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, I'm a huge fan of the original 2099 series. I love Spider-Man 2099, Doom, I cannot wait for the Doom 2099, Omni, Punisher 2099, and, oh my gosh, I really hope they give us a Ravage 2099. That would be so awesome if they do that. But there was X-Men 2099. But more so than that, I'm also a huge fan of Annihilation. So what happens when both of these worlds collide? Well, I will say it feels a lot different than both the 2099 series and the Annihilation event. So this is all written by Steve Orlando, and you have different artists joining him. You have Ibrahim Robertson with Last Nova, Pete Woods with The Rage Reborn, Jose Luis Suarez on The Tyrant Star, A Tragical History by Ario Anindito, and then Dracula Risen, Undead or Alive by Del Eaglesham. So this is collecting the Annihilation 2099 series 1 through 5. The book has 136 pages and retails for $17.99. And each of the one-shots, or I guess each of the issues feels like a one-shot that kind of leads to this sort of conclusion that I didn't expect with Dracula of all people. So, the first story is about the Nova Corps and one of the last remaining members of the Nova Corps and fighting against the Null Set, who are a group of thieves that have the symbiote power of Null, and they're trying to invade this town and take advantage of the Nova Corps kind of disbanding. There are backup stories, so the Dracula backup stories are in the back here. And then we have the second issue. There's a little bit of bio here on the Nova character and on the characters of the Null Set. Now, there's a little bit of a twist with the Nova story. This story right here is about the Wakandan tech goddess known as Star-Lord. Now, she is a little bit different than the Star-Lords that came previously. Of course, she comes from Wakanda, and she works solo, but she also has like all this different tech on her side. And she's fighting in this issue right here against the character known as Quasar, the Living Star. And does he have ties to the original Quasar? The next issue focuses on the character known as Ross Romero, who comes from Nueva York. And, of course, that's where Spidey 2099, Miguel, came from. Now, this character is the one that turns into the Red Hulk. How he turns into the Red Hulk, though, is a little bit different. And this is the fight against Terrax. So it's between him and Terrax. And, again, building up the story of the Dracula book. Now we have the new Silver Surfer of 2099 trying to break his pact against Mephisto. Like he has this pact with Mephisto, and he's trying to break it and break free. Very similar to the story of Galactus and the original Norrinrod. And then the last story is this Dracula storyline, which I did not expect, and I didn't expect who he's defending his planet from. In the back, we do have some character designs. Back here, I actually dig that Dracula 2099 outfit. And then I love these variant covers because they have that frame, that 2099 frame around them. That's freaking awesome. Wait, if you collected them, did they have that prism finish to them? Or no, it was chromium. The chromium finish to these. 136 pages, $17.99. Venom War, Wolverine, Deadpool. What a uncommon way to get into Venom War. But this does come out before the actual Venom War trade paperback. It's not the only Venom War tie-in trade paperback. These will be out a little bit later. I am assuming most people will probably read the event. I read it like this. So if you haven't read Venom War, I do have to talk a little bit about what is going on in Venom War. So I guess spoilers for Venom War, just in case, before I even open this up. Or, okay, just in case. Okay. Collected in here is Venom War Wolverine 1 through 3, Venom War Deadpool 1 through 3, and Venom War Carnage 1 through 3. Even though Carnage's name is not there, nor in the back, they do say that Carnage does show up. Then, of course, the ad for actual Venom War. It is broken down by different creators, Tim Seeley and Tony Fleece working together to write Venom War Wolverine, written by them, but drawn by Kev Walker. Cullen Bunn is writing the Venom War Deadpool with Rob DeSalvo and Roy Mercado doing the art. And Torun Grumbag writing the Venom War Carnage with Pere Perez. It's the same creative team that did the Carnage series. The book has 200 pages and retails for $24.99. So the first story is about Wolverine. Again, spoilers for what's going on in Venom War. Because we're about to talk about these zombiettes. So we have Venom. Eddie Brock and Dylan are in separate parts of time and space, but both have gone to war over control of Venom because both of them have had visions of the Venom symbiote, what it's going to do and what it's going to cost, if you will. So between their war, these zombiettes, these dead-brained type of symbiotes are taking over people. So turning them into a mix of a zombie and a symbiote. So that's what this is about. You're going to be seeing them appear throughout these miniseries. The first one is, of course, Wolverine taking on them. And, of course, we've seen Wolverine fight off the symbiote. How can it fight off against a zombieette, though? So that's the first story. The second story is the Deadpool one. Sometimes variants are on the opposite side of the standard edition cover. But this one, if you've been reading the Deadpool series by Cody Sigler, and before that it was Alyssa Wong, we have a symbiote that's been with him. The dog, the princess dog, she plays a part in this, and so does Silence, Andy Benton. So again, if you haven't been reading that, you might be a little confused, but Cullen Bunn does a great job catching you up to speed, especially like some of the monster things. If you didn't read like The King of the Monsters by Kelly Thompson, which I strongly suggest you do because it's really solid. This keeps you up to date with the ending of the Carnage story. So this actually feels more like it is important to read because the first two are fun. You know, it's Deadpool and friends fighting off against the zombiettes. It's Wolverine fighting off against the zombiettes. And this actually feels like Carnage is a big part of the whole Venom War. And even if you hadn't read the Carnage series, if you're reading Venom War, I strongly suggest reading this because there are some important parts that happen that I can't spoil with the symbiotes here. Because Carnage has always been, I mean, he was the very first offspring of Venom. And again, the variant covers are sometimes on the opposite side of the standard edition covers. Both of them, or actually all three of the miniseries, give you a great little recap as to what's happened previously. So, and I gotta say, these covers by Ken Lashley, oh man, they're freaking awesome. I think that's Ken Lashley, right? I want to say, let's see, cover art by Mr. Daniel and, no wait, yeah, Ken Lashley and Romulo Fajardo. Mr. Daniel and Caden McGahey are assistant editors. Okay. But that is Venom War, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Carnage. And it is that time of the video where we look at all the spines of the books coming out this week, and also a small reminder to please hit that like button. It goes a long way for us here on the channel. Alright, let's continue with the overview. Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone, Volume 1, Red Wave. And this, for the first time, collects the new Uncanny X-Men series. We haven't had an Uncanny X-Men series in a while. Before Krakoa is when we actually had the last one. So it's back to being Uncanny X-Men, because we had X-Men, we had Immortal X-Men, but Uncanny, it's been a while. So this is the 2024 Uncanny X-Men 1 through 6. It does have X-Men 35, the C story, and then Free Comic Book Day 2024 Blood Hunt X-Men number 1. The book has 176 pages and retails for $19.99. This gives you a little bit of background as to what happened since Krakoa fell. Written by Gail Simone, David Marquez, and Javier Garon, but it's David Marquez doing issues 1 through 5, Javier Garon doing issue 6. Matthew Wilson's beautiful colors bringing it all together, Clayton Cowles doing the lettering. And then, of course, Free Comic Book Days by Gail Simone and David Marquez, and then X-Men 35s by Jed McKay and Gail Simone, and then Javier Garon doing the art there. This is your these are your main members here. You have Rogue, Gambit, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee. So we start off with this story of Jubilee going back to Xavier's mansion, and there are changes immediately. The sign is being taken down, something's going on, and she doesn't... The dialogue is all her. Like, we see the narration talking about just how much she had to change, how she came here and made friends. We do see the character of Dr. Karina Ellis here, as well as this gentleman named Philip, and they're talking about how they're going to make this into a new institution, and they're going to get rid of everything Xavier, they're going to burn everything, and any student or anyone that they find will be under arrest. So you can see that they're either government-funded program, because they have sentries here, they have guards, or something else, somebody else is funding them. And Jubilee gets on her bike, goes to the diner, and meets this young girl right there, and this is where you see the M being used, like the symbol to let each other know that they're mutants. These group of kids are making fun of her, and she embarrasses them by taking them down, like burning their car. And then we get to see an inmate X. We see this redhead that's tied in, like she's an inmate there, and then this big door right there that says Inmate X. And that's all I will say about that, because I don't want to spoil what happens next. And here we have what is now called the Graymalkin Institution, that was formerly once known as the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Again, so we see Dr. Karina Ellis there with Philip and Captain Ader here. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find all these mutants and capture them. And then we see a reunion. And it is a pretty reunion. You see Wolverine visiting an old friend, an old war buddy. They're supposed to be drinking tequila together to mourn their fallen friends. And he was the last one that was alive. So he feels alone. Wolverine and Rogue and Gambit, seems like none of them have seen each other since the fall of Krakoa. So he goes and pays them a visit. And they go and fight this dragon. If you've read Savage Avengers, you know who this character is, and the ties to perhaps Doctor Strange. And of all people, Gambit's the one that makes a deal with them. And you see this character, known as Fawn, that gets captured. And it's this creature right here that comes after her, known as the Hag. It's capturing mutants for some reason. There is one other character I haven't talked about, and it kind of starts off with this diary. But we'll get to that here in a second. This is where the three remaining X-Men, not calling themselves X-Men, come to see Harvey X. Nightcrawler made the call to Anna Marie Rogue, and she was like, okay, we'll come. Of course. He is dying of cancer, and the brain cancer is just attacking him, and he doesn't have long to live. The biggest X-Men fan. And he touches Rogue, and this will actually expand a little bit later why he touched her before he passes away, and how he warns her about the New Mutants and how one of them will be the Endling, and of course speaking in riddles, because that's just something you do. Now we come to find out that they are staying in Louisiana, about 45 miles north of New Orleans. They're all staying in this home that is this gentleman here with his wife and kid, and they home a lot of orphans. And this is really heartbreaking. This is when Rogue starts telling them, you know, she tried to call Kitty Pryde, she tried to call everybody, and nobody would come. There are no more X-Men. Like, she keeps up with Scott, he's up north, but Wolverine and, of course, her husband Gambit are the only ones that are there. And then we meet these 4 new characters that are like, help us, she's coming for us. This is what I wanted to talk about. There are flashbacks here, because we haven't seen Professor Xavier. Ever since Krakoa went away, like, people have thrown hints as to perhaps he's dead, perhaps he flew away, perhaps he disappeared. We don't know where he is. In this book, you are given ideas where he could be. But there are flashbacks here where we are introduced to this character named Sarah that was before he fell in love with Moira McTaggart, before Gabrielle Hellard. And we've seen stories like this before, Redcon, where they're showing a love interest in the past, with, like, Amelia Vaught, for example. And Sarah is a peculiar person, I will say that. We still don't know who that redhead is that is trapped there at Grey Malkin, but we do get to find out who these new mutants are, these outliers, that this character, this hag, is after, this creature. You have Calico and Ember, and you've got the character of Jitter, and you've got Ransom, and then you've got Deathstream right here. Of course, that is their superhero X-Men names, if you will. But what does all of this have to do with Grey Malkin? Who is this hag? Who are these 4 new mutants? Is one of them really the ending of everything, as that one kid told Rogue? And by the end of this, who will be the main core team? Will it really be the 5 characters of Jubilee, Rogue, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Gambit? Or could one of them leave? Or perhaps the kids will be with them? And will they be staying here in Louisiana? So, this is the beginning of the new Uncanny X-Men series. This does lead into a crossover with X-Men. I think it's called X-Hunt, if I'm not mistaken. So, the next volume will actually be a crossover volume. In the back, we do have variant covers, along with a letter from Gail Simone. And the book, again, has a... I love that cover. That is awesome. There's that Jim Lee cover. The book has 176 pages, and again, retails for $19.99. And some of them in thumbnail size, and some of them in splash page. And that is Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone, Volume 1, Red Wave. Backed by a huge popular demand because you all voted for it. Here we are with Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection. This is Volume 18, Venom. And here's the back. This is the one that fits in between the Kraven's Last Hunt and Assassination. So, you have Innocenti, David Michelinie. But really, David Michelinie is the one that wrote most of the stories in here. With Tom DeFalco, Steve Ditko, Roger Stern, Mark Grunwald, Cynthia Martin, Alex Seviak, and Todd McFarlane. And we kick it off with this awesome, underrated little 3-part crossover from Web of Spider-Man to Amazing Spider-Man, and then, of course, back to Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man. As a matter of fact, I actually talked about this when I was doing my overview of the Web of Spider-Man Volume 1 Omni. So, collected in here is Amazing Spider-Man 295 to 310, Amazing Spider-Man Annual 22, Web of Spider-Man 33, Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 133. The book has 504 pages, and this time around it retails for $49.99. I want to say the first printing was $39.99, if I'm not mistaken. I gave it away because I don't have it. I ended up giving it away. This was the book that was printed at the Quad Pro printing, so it had a lot of quality control issues. So if you have that original printing, you may want to check it out and see what it looks like and how it's holding up. All right, I talked about this storyline right here, but I really enjoy it. It's about Peter Parker investigating this perhaps house where people are being kept there, this hospital. And maybe some of them are superheroes, or maybe some of them are just crazy people that are stuck there. I really like that. There is a follow-up story to that happens later on. I'm sure it will be collected in a Epic Collection one day. You have this cover here by John Byrne, and the return of Doc Ock happens through here with a little bit of recap as to how they met and how long this feud has been going on. And it is important to know that during this time, it is Spider-Man wearing the black outfit, but it's not the symbiote outfit. The symbiote has already made a friend. Then we have the Chance story, and the Chance story also brings this new guy named Todd McFarlane as the penciler. Bob McLeod doing the inks, but then eventually, by the time you get to issue 300, that's when you get Todd McFarlane inking his own stuff, and the rest, as they say, is history. We get a little bit of cameo here by Eddie Brock. Looks like somebody has the symbiote outfit and is out to get Spider-Man for some reason, while Spider-Man is out there fighting this character named Chance, who makes a return here. First appeared in the pages of Web of Spider-Man. And then we have Mary Jane approached by the symbiote. And now we have issue 300, a very iconic issue, the first full appearance of Venom. And this is the one that is penciled and inked by Todd McFarlane and forever changed the game. The webbing and the just ridiculous poses that Peter Parker would do as Spider-Man, and I'm all here for it. I love this stuff. If you think the symbiote suit coming to life and becoming one of his biggest arch nemesis is ridiculous, then the story's not for you. But if you like the visuals, if you like the idea of Venom, the symbiote suit, the suit that was once attached to Peter Parker coming to life and swearing vengeance against Peter Parker, then this is the one. Here's issue 301 again. I love this. I love the fact that we have issue 300 having this classic outfit of the black, and then we go back to the basics of the red and blue. Again, with the spaghetti webbing and the amazing poses. Now we have the return of Silver Sable. So there are other stories in here. I know it's called Venom, but I mean, Venom is why a lot of people buy the book, but there's so much more than Venom in these stories here. This is it's Sandman and Silver Sable. Oh, that's when she was forming her own wild pack. So Silver Sable making a return here. We also have, I think it's the Steve Ditko issue that has the first appearance of Speedball. Yes, right here. Move over, Spidey. Enter Speedball. New Warriors, baby. Not collected in the New Warriors Omni, but again, Steve Ditko and this new character of Speedball. And we go back to Spider-Man with the return of the Fox right here. And the Prowler, man, the way he drew capes. Yes, obviously very, very Spawn-like, but, I mean, you know, he took a little bit of liberties with Spawn. Like, he did his own thing. I think the only thing he had issues with was the skulls. I remember he had to remove the skulls or change the skulls up because they look too much like the Punisher skulls. This beautiful homage here to, of course, Siegel and Schuster. And Mary Jane having troubles at her acting career. We have the return of the Black Cat. We've got a brand new hero here, or somebody that's pretending to be a hero. And then I love this cover. You know, my wife, the Astonishing Melanie, still has some of these singles issues. And it's the return of the Chameleon. And who ended up kidnapping Mary Jane? This is the fight against the Taskmaster. His Taskmaster's badass, too. The fight at the graveyard. Here, let's see. Yeah, just love the way he looks. And you've got all these wonderful artists, all these legends who I want to say, well, most of them are gone now. But at the time this was out, most of them were still with us. Yeah, you got Steve Ditko, John Romita, and Ross Andrew, Gil Kane, Ron Friends, John Romita Jr. there. But it's the fight against the Taskmaster. This is the Sticks and Stone issues right here. And then Shrike. It's ridiculous. I always thought it was, what's his name? Black Clash. And then in the back, we do have some extras. This is the trade paperback of Life in the Mad Dog Ward. And then promotional stuff. Oh, that cover there. Or that pinup by Arthur Adams. That poster, I remember they turned it into, I think, a trade paperback cover. You have The Amazing Spider-Man by David Michelinie. Afterward by David Michelinie. And then you have, this is from the Omni. And then you have the Afterword here by Ralph Macchio, who, of course, was the editor on a lot of these books. I think it should go without saying, but this was my childhood Spider-Man. This is what's getting my seal of approval for this week. This was such a great read. If you missed out on it, if you don't have the Omni, if you don't have the Venom Epic Collections, then yes, absolutely pick this up. It's a great story. I really enjoy this era of David Michelinie and Todd McFarlane, and that eventually led into the Eric Larson era. But oh man, it was a game changer, especially if you look, and there's nothing wrong with these wonderful artists that were working on the book right before McFarlane started. But it was so different when he jumped on. I mean, this is Alex Seviuk, right? Vince Coletta supplying the inks, John Byrne on cover, but there was just something different, something unique about that McFarlane kid. And I mean, everybody saw it, right? Which is why a lot of us followed him all the way to Image with Spawn. But if it wasn't for this, I don't know how long it would have taken for Spawn to come out. And then Speedball! Come on! Who doesn't love the New Warriors? But that is The Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection Volume 18. Venom. ROM Epic Collection, The Original Marvel Years Volume 1. And I want to point out that this actually looks a little bit different than your Epic Collections, right? It looks like it's like a capsule design up there. But let's see how the spines look. That looks the same. Honestly, Marvel Epic Collection ROM, The Original Years, Mutant Genesis, and then, of course, comparing it to the Modern Era Epic Collection. But these have their own little brand right there. And then, of course, to the Ultimate Era of Epic Collections right here with Ultimate X-Men Tomorrow People. But yeah, it does look like if you put it up on the shelf, it's not going to look any different than your other Epic Collections. It's much more so the front cover here. So this is Volume 1. This has been collected in Omni format. And now it's coming out for the first time in a Epic Collection. Collecting the first 20 issues, 1979 to 1981. Written by Bill Mantlo. This is almost unprecedented that you only see one writer and one artist, or one penciler, rather, on books like Epic Collections. But your inkers like Joe Sinnott, Al Milgram, and Frank Giacoia helping out. And then Bob Sharon, Glynis Oliver, Ben Shawn, some of the colorists. And then Tom Orzechowski and John Costanza doing the lettering there. And man, do I love... This was hard. To pick, like, my pick of the week, I almost went with this because I really enjoyed rereading it. But I had to go with what was true to my heart, and it was my childhood, right? And nostalgia has a way of just making you come back and reliving those memories of opening up the books for the first time, turning the pages, and just feeling the ink. And I'm sure this has a lot of nostalgia for people, too. I've done an overview, a thorough overview of the history of this, such as the Parker Brothers toy that was a failed toy, but the comic was a success. Marvel started integrating a lot of their Marvel Universe characters in these comics because it was so successful. And a lot of that had to do with the creative team of Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema, our pal Sal. So it does start off with this weird creature. I love the way it opens up with a meteor or a comet crash landing on Earth. And we see this robot coming out of the meteor. And he stops a car and easily pulls it aside. And he gets out this analyzer, or a weapon, if you will, that will come to play a little bit later. And he points it at this young lady. And we don't know who this lady is. We don't know who this robot is. But this is Brandy. And man, Brandy just picked a bad day to be driving down the road. Or maybe a great day. because this is where a bond was made. So he ends up leaving Brandy Clark, and he ends up going to another location. This is where he meets a bunch of other people in this little town of Clairton. And this is in West Virginia, population of 1,400. And again, he pulls out this weapon, or what seems to be a weapon, and starts pointing it at the crowd. And everybody seems fine, except these two right here. So this analyzer weapon that he's pointing now turns into a neutralizer. And he just disintegrates these people. They turn into like ashes. And of course, I mean, that is freaky, right? He's not speaking. He's just pointing this thing at people. The military get involved. But Brandy seems to think that there's something with him. Like, she was able to live for some reason. Then he starts speaking to her. So Brandy Clark becomes our first Earthling that gets to know about ROM, the Space Knight, and how he came to be. So we start the story of the legend of the Space Knights, and this is where she finds out that in Galador, about 200 years ago, there lived a peaceful race until out of the Black Nebula came out the Dire Wraith. We don't really see the Dire Wraith until a little bit later. And then what happens is that the leader, the prime director of the Galadorians, opens up it's by volunteer military project where they are stripping away your humanity or everything that makes you who you are and making you into a machine. And the first person to volunteer is none other than Rom. And they let him know that there is no coming back from this. Once you turn into a space knight, a robot, you won't be able to come back and restore your humanity. And he has to think about that for a little bit, right? Because he has this lady friend named Reyna, which will come to play a little bit later. So he says that, they were able to beat the Dire Wraiths out of Galador, but some escaped. And his whole goal has been for 200 years going around the galaxy, hunting down the rest of the Dire Wraiths. Some of them at some point came to Earth, and because of their shape-shifting abilities, they integrated themselves with Earthlings. And who knows how long they've been living here. So that's why he uses that analyzer to see who could be a Dire Wraith, and that analyzer becomes a neutralizer to wipe away the Dire Wraiths if they are found. Now, you think that he's killing them, but later on you find out there's something else that happens to them. But that's how it begins. We get to meet Steve Jackson, which is Brandy Clark's boyfriend. He gets a little bit jealous of the Space Knight. Freaking love that cover right there. I think I probably pointed out. I had to point it out. I mean, it's been over a year, so I've done my overview of the Romnibus, but I've had to point it out. We start seeing flashbacks of his world and who his friends were. And perhaps this guy right here could have been one of his friends at one time, named Karaz, but he goes by the name of Firefall now. And what ended up happening to Karaz? We see the Dire Wraiths teaming up with different military people. The Dire Wraiths start to evolve and change in a way, so they start looking like the characters, if you're familiar with the Dire Wraiths in the Marvel Universe. So that was a big part of the problem why they couldn't print this like at IDW when they had the rights to ROM. It's because they couldn't use the Marvel characters. And the Marvel character Serpentine, that's a character that appeared in the pages of Miss Marvel, or not him, but rather his race. The character was so intertwined with the Marvel Universe that they couldn't really reprint any of this stuff without Marvel's approval. So it's a good thing that Marvel ended up getting the rights back. Here's another Bill Mantlo character, Jack of Hearts, who had appeared in the Master Kung Fu series, now taking on ROM. And we get more and more of his backup story, how he came to be. This is the Mad Thinker. Again, characters from the Marvel Universe showing up and interacting with him. And then we start getting the backstories here, the saga of the Space Knights. Not just talking about ROM, but also other characters like Starshine and other Space Knights that will play a huge part in the story and will come back to play a huge part in the ongoing saga of ROM. We do have the hybrid crossover here where the X-Men think they found a new mutant, but instead it could be a Dire Wraith, or it could be a mixed dire wraith / mutant in this child. And something very, very important happens in here to the character of Rogue that could appear later on in the pages of X-Men. And this was, I think this was reprinted as either a facsimile edition or a small trade paperback right before the Omni came out. The next story is about ROM actually heading to Limbo, and who he sees he runs into in Limbo. Somebody I did not expect to find in Limbo. Not that I've been there before, but I have been there in the pages of New Mutants, of course, because of magic. It's a different Limbo, though. Now, in the back is where you're going to find the introduction by Chris Real, who, of course, worked at IDW, was a huge part of bringing ROM over to IDW and just the importance of ROM. We have a house ad here of ROM, the Space Knight, the Parker Brothers toy. And then this right here, the house ad that became the cover. So I hope they have the George Perez cover. This is the original unused pencils by Ed Hannigan. Original art. So a lot of the stuff that you've seen in the Omni if you have it, but if you don't, hey, there's the George Perez piece. Not in color, but it is here. Now, this book, again, collects the first 20 issues of ROM, 432 pages, and this one retails for $49.99. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. In the comments down below, let me know which ones you are picking up, which ones you missed out on the first time around and you're planning on getting it, which you were going to read for the first time and you've been waiting for a trade or an epic collection of the series to come out. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Check us out on Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.